Thank you everyone for joining me on our third webinar from the webinar series by Sustained Leadership. And today we'll be talking about innovation beyond buzzword and innovation in times of crisis. Just to keep the learning linked to the context of the situation that we are going through that was triggered by the so famous now COVID-19. I'll be presenting some slides and I'll keep it short, as I said earlier, to 20-25 minutes so we have time to chat. And you can always send me any question or interrupt by chat, and I'll be happy to answer as many questions as I can. I'll be sharing a presentation with you. So, innovation in times of crisis. I think this is not the first time that you hear that in every crisis lies opportunity. And it's up to us to really seize those opportunities. And looking at just the way we are having this webinar, I feel that this was probably inconceivable a few months back. Not that we didn't have the technology, not that Zoom wasn't working, not that we didn't have internet, but it just wouldn't cross our mind that instead of having a workshop face-to-face or a meeting face-to-face, that we could use technology. But in this crisis, it's becoming normal. We are all using it, and we have learned how to innovate and do things differently. Now, looking back at history and looking at these giant brand names that I selected here, these are just few of so many. And the only common denominator among all these names, and that's why they are on this slide, it's because each of them was born in times of crisis. We're talking about GE, General Electric, General Motors, IBM, Uber, Microsoft, WhatsApp, and even Alibaba. These all these companies, as successful as they are, as giants as they are, they were born after crisis. And that's a proof to us that after every crisis, there lie opportunities. Now, looking at the current reality, I know that there will be many companies that will be born post or after, at the aftermath of this crisis. But for now, let's see what kind of innovations have happened even from existing companies and existing organizations. I'm talking about Apple that has started producing face shields. I'm talking about the fashion brands like Dior and LVMH, known by their brand Louis Vuitton, who have started producing sanitizers. I'm talking about car companies like Ford and General Motors, who have redirected their efforts to start producing parts or full ventilators. You're looking at some of these pictures here. What I'm trying to showcase is that in times of crisis, we start thinking differently, and we start redirecting, reinventing our business models. We have seen field hospitals being built in days, which would take months in normal times. We have seen modes of communication, the way we celebrate. In a nutshell, everything we do, the way we do things, the way we react with each other, the way we are conducting our daily lives, whether professional or personal, has completely shifted, which shows that crisis is really a trigger to innovation. So, and when I look at COVID-19, because the innovation is a topic that is really dear to my heart, it's a topic that is part of my work, that is part of my passion. And working with organizations and individuals on innovation, I look back and I see that what this crisis of coronavirus or COVID-19 has really shown us, it really has shown us the innovation, or is teaching us innovation pillars. Because at the end of the day, what are innovation pillars? Is that we get out of our routine, we get out of our the norm, what we think is the norm of doing things, what we think is the right thing to do, and we start thinking differently. We start speeding up the times of execution. We start changing laws, rules, and policies. We have less resistance to change. We have more acceptance to try and experiment. So everything that when we talk about innovation is needed to foster a culture of innovation or to become more innovative is everything that this crisis is teaching us. And I think you would agree, just looking at the way we are having this discussion today. So do we need genius to innovate? If innovation, we keep talking about innovation all the time, and that's why my presentation is called Beyond a Buzzword. We hear it everywhere. We all want to be innovative. All companies want to hire innovative minds, innovative talents. Governments want to be innovative. It has become such a common word in the past probably 10 years. But do we really need genius to innovate? Well, I just selected a couple of historical geniuses themselves who don't think so. And I selected a quote from Albert Einstein, who said, "I have no special talent, I'm only passionately curious." And Mr. Newton said, "If I have ever made any valuable discoveries, it has been owing more to patient attention than to any other talent." We see really what we think are simple skills and common, but sometimes common sense or common skills are not that common. So it's about curiosity, it's about patience, it's about observation. It does not take a genius to innovate, because at the end of the day, what is the definition of innovation? And I feel that there is still a big mix up between creativity and innovation. Creativity is a skill. We can come up with new ideas, ideas that are improvised, that haven't been tried before, but it stays there. So it's a skill that we can build, we can learn. But the difference between innovation and creativity is that innovation is the execution of creative ideas. So you need execution to innovate. You need to see that idea come to life in order to say that you are innovating. And all it takes, it's not about inventing new things. All it takes is to ask that question: how can I do things differently every day? Why not? What if I try this? What if I try that? It's just about being curious. It's about being patient. It's about being acceptant to experimenting. And that's why I go back to saying that this crisis has taught us that, because many of the things that we are doing today, we wouldn't have imagined. The way we entertain kids, the way we do sports, everything. And I don't want to get into these details. I'm sure you are all living it, but the learning from that is all that it takes to innovate. So do we always need a crisis? Maybe. We need to build on that, and we're going to see it a bit later. How can we benefit from the learnings from this crisis to continue on innovating and to keep that momentum of innovation? It's really about asking the what if, and what if always results in infinite possibilities. What if I try this? What if there was another way to do things? What if this is not the only way of solving these problems? So innovation really takes that curiosity again and looking at possibilities rather than looking at problems. Because when this crisis hit us, we've seen governments, companies, individuals, parents, depending, doesn't matter what your level or your leadership level or your role or your responsibility, because we need to solve a problem that is urgent, because we have a challenge that is urgent, we could not just sit there and wait. We had to experiment, and many things experimented with did not work. We've seen governments that went for the herd immunity, didn't work. We've seen lockdown, and then end of lockdown, then going back to lockdown, because there is that uncertainty. And all we can do is keep on looking at multiple scenarios and looking at answering these questions of what if, and looking at the possibilities. So these are the two main learnings that we got from this crisis that really match with the pillars of innovation, or what is needed to become innovative. Again, so is it, and I've gone through that already, is it just a buzzword? It is a common buzzword. I mean, we hear it everywhere, as I said, organizational innovation, government innovation. We've seen Innovation Week, Innovation Day, innovation courses in universities. So everyone is interested, but not everyone is reaching the way how we can foster that innovation as a way of thinking. Because at the end of the day, it's not about just coming up with new or latest technologies or new products or new services. It's really about how can we foster that mindset of innovation? How can we foster that culture of innovation so it becomes a way of doing things, a way of dealing with each other? And let's look a little bit more into what it takes. Because today, innovation has become a buzzword, because for the past 2 decades, everyone is talking about how the competitive edge, or the best competitive edge in business or even among governments, is how innovative you can be. But today, it's no longer just a competitive edge. I think it's an imperative to survive. And I brought some examples. Actually, when I had this training 2 days ago, I didn't have one of these images because I had this training in Arabic, and participants liked it so much that I heard from so many to run it in English, and that's why we're here today. And I did not have that one of the images that talks about Zoom, which is the tool that we are using today to communicate, and that's how you are with me in this webinar. Can you just take a look at that image and what it shows? The value of Zoom today is worth the 7 airlines combined, the value of 7 airlines combined. What is that telling us? That in times of crisis, opportunities come for others more than other fields. So now we are looking at some industries that are going bankrupt. We're looking at the retail giants falling. I've received an article about some US retail giants like Neiman Marcus and JCPenney that have filed for bankruptcy. But we tend to only look at the problems or at the recession that comes from any crisis or from any pandemic, because this is not the first pandemic that humanity has witnessed, but we tend to omit to look at the opportunities, look at companies like Zoom, how much they will be thriving. What I'm trying to say here as well is that regardless of this pandemic or not, because what I believe is that COVID-19 has only accelerated what was already coming our way. It has accelerated the need to innovate, but it doesn't mean that just because of that. Already the fourth industrial revolution that I refer to as technological revolution, that is making everything digital, everything Internet of Things and the AIs and the blockchains and all these new buzzwords that I'm sure all of us have been hearing for the past few years. That digital transformation that is happening was already bringing us to the situation, and COVID-19 has just accelerated it a little bit and made many companies that were not ready start really looking into getting ready to that. On top of, on my slide on the right, you can see it's a graph that is showing the lifespan of companies and how it's been reducing over, through history. In the 1930s, and it's not here, but I know it because I read it in another study, companies or big companies could have a lifespan doing what they do in the same industry with the same products up to 90 years. Then in 55, that came down to 61 years. In 2015, and it just kept going down, as you can see. And then in 2015, it's only 17 years. Or I believe that now, even now, it's going to be much, much less. And we have examples. If you are, older than 21 or probably older than 25, you would have used Nokia. And what is Nokia today? It was a giant. So that always comes as an example of companies that could not maintain the leadership position. Not only could not maintain the leadership position, they could not exist anymore. They have completely disappeared. The latest one was Thomas Cook in the travel industry as well. So the point I'm trying to say here is that innovation and disrupting your business model and becoming or continuing to be relevant, which can only be done in innovative ways, is no longer just a competitive advantage, but it's really a need to survive. It's an imperative to survive. So why there is opportunity in times of crisis? So I'm just summarizing what I was talking about, how COVID-19 taught us those pillars of innovation, because crisis create that sense of urgency. We cannot just take it easy and do our work. And I'm not talking just about organizations, I'm talking about even individuals, because this can also apply to individuals. When you have that sense of urgency, you're triggered to start thinking differently, to start challenging yourself, to be stretched a little bit, to get out of that comfort zone. You can look at new needs and challenges as a company in crisis. Like today, a lot of parents are teaching, schooling their kids from home. So they will have certain needs. We are all buying online more than before, which means companies who are serving this industry, whether by being in the supply chain or being in the e-commerce, they will be thriving. So new needs, new challenges means new opportunities. A new lifestyle means new ways of doing, means new opportunities. there is less resistance to change. People are more now in tune into doing things in a different way. So this is the chance for everyone to look at that opportunity, because everyone is into that mindset of not saying, oh, but I'm not used to this. Because what this crisis or any crisis teaches us is to start getting out of the comfort zone and start thinking, well, what if I try a different way? There is an openness to new ideas. There's quick decision making. We've all seen it. The things that used to take weeks, changing policies, HR policies. I remember I work with some organizations, and I had suggested a few years back, to certain clients to start having some of their individuals or their employees work from home on shifts, probably just shifting 2 days a week, having them from home. It will improve the morale. It will increase or help with that life balance. And it was rejected, because they just thought, how could we control? How could we make sure that they are doing their job? How could we really measure productivity? Well, today, that client, among many others, did not think twice, because they had to. So in time of crisis, we start being open more to new ideas. And I'm sure that they will continue doing that, because they suddenly realized it's not really far-fetched. It's not really affecting the productivity. As a matter of fact, I think we are all working much harder than when we used to go to offices. So there's also more collaboration. And these are the pillars of innovation. We need collaboration. Innovation does not happen individually. It does not happen in silos. It needs diverse ideas. It needs coordination. And again, in this crisis, we have seen how everyone has shown unprecedented willingness to collaborate, whether on a local level, regional level, or even on a global level, even governments, everybody, because that sense of urgency is there. There is one common purpose, there is one common challenge. So everyone is more willing to be open, to share information, to join forces to solve that problem fast and in the most efficient way. There is more focus on the purpose, as I said, and more readiness to stretch out of the comfort zone. So everything we look at is exactly what we have been living, and it's exactly why crisis creates opportunities, but also why crisis teaches us to be more innovative. Sorry. So if we want to take it back to the organizational context, how can we foster a culture of innovation? Based on the way that we been dealing with, working with clients on spreading a culture of innovation, rather than just running a workshop and raising awareness and then nothing happens. It's really, if we really want to become an innovative body, well, whether an innovative individual government or governmental institution, an innovative organization, these are the main 3 steps. First of all, we need to assess innovation readiness. Everybody aspires to be innovative, but it doesn't just take a snap finger and say, okay, great, bring the consultant, let them show us how to be innovative, let them give the people, our individuals, a couple of workshops and teach us how to start thinking differently, and that's it, and then we'll do it. No, because fostering a culture of innovation means you need to be ready to let go of control. Innovation means you're trying and experimenting with new things that could fail. Are you willing to accept? How much willingness you have to accept failure? At what level? Are you willing, as a leader, especially in the leadership, are you willing to listen to ideas from anybody in the organization? Because innovative ideas can come from anyone. So are you creating that safe space for others to come and suggest to you their ideas, or is it really very hierarchical? Is your organizational structure flat enough to allow for that? Are your teams working together? Is there enough trust for people to conflict with ideas without having to lose each other? So it takes a lot, and we go in and we really assess that readiness, looking at individuals, looking at behaviors, looking at skills, looking at procedures and processes and systems before we can say, okay, now you're ready. So we assess We generate reports and we say, okay, these are the inhibitors of innovation that you have. These are the behaviors that you have in your organization, and they're not really conducive to innovation. These are the people that need to be trained or coached or counseled. These are the people that could be innovation champions because they are open to ideas and they can influence others. These are just the even the spaces, the way the space is done can really, is there enough dynamic spaces to help people become more creative, to pitch ideas. So there's a lot that goes in before we can really claim that we are ready to innovate. And then there's collaboration. I call it here teaming. If you attended my previous workshop, it was about the new norm of looking at teamwork, especially that we are remote now. It's teaming, and I'm not going to go into details. You could also you could always refer to the previous workshop. It's on YouTube. Teaming is a verb. So to innovate, you need to start looking at not a team as a noun, which is a static entity, but rather looking at teaming as a verb, which needs activity. People are active. They're willing to team up, to coordinate with anyone, not just with the people that look like them, or with the people with whom they spend enough time to know them and to trust them. Today, in a fast-paced environment, in an environment that is changing all the time, we cannot have the luxury of time to put people together, give them enough time to learn about each other, and develop that trust before they can start performing. So we need individuals who are willing to change. They can be shifted. And we've seen that in many companies with this crisis, that have been moved from roles to completely different roles, because they could no longer, for example, be customer facing. So we needed to take them to the back office and see what they can help, how they can help, because the overload is now on the back office. So teaming is about having individuals that are focused on the purpose, that don't need to know who they're working with, but they're willing to share, they're willing to take risk, because they'll be working with people that they don't really trust. And this also creates diversity, because if we have the same people who think the same way, have the same background, how can we innovate? We can fall into what we call groupthink. Groupthink is we have consensus. And when we have consensus all the time, we're just going to be doing the things the way we've been doing them. So teaming, which creates diverse teams, is very important in creating or fostering culture of innovation and conducive environments, which means the laws, the rules, the regulations, but also the physical environment, for example, innovation labs, creativity corners, dynamic spaces, that idea boxes, idea wall where people can share their ideas, to really trigger and make it a habit for everyone to wake up every day and think, how can I innovate? We can even talk about incentives, or running innovation contests, or corporate entrepreneurship. So there are plenty of ideas that can fall into this conducive environment that creates a culture of innovation and behavioral or behaviors of innovation across the organization. Mindsets. Let's look at mindsets and values and behaviors, because culture is the base of culture is beliefs. The culture is about people. It's not about integrating the latest technology. At the end of the day, it's the people who innovate, who can imagine, who can create, that can really make any company or any organization an innovative one, not just the latest technologies, because you are still dealing with human beings, whether as customers or employees or different stakeholders. So to embrace innovation, an innovation mindset or values, I just selected 10 main ones for you. First, creative confidence. Everybody can be creative. You have to be confident that you can create. And that's not linking to, when we link creativity to art, and that's the mistake I was making myself. Like if I run this workshop, when I run these innovation workshops in a room, I would ask this question: how many of you think that you are creative? And I wouldn't see so many hands up raised. And actually, I was one of those too, because I grew up, at least in my generation, I grew up thinking that creativity has to do with being able to draw or to make things out of nothing, or to really be artistic. While creativity is really about looking at the things the way they are and say, what if we try doing it a different way, without asking, is it right or wrong? Because who says what is right or wrong? And as long as it is linked to specific outcome, that is linked to specific challenge or a specific need. So creative confidence is very important. If you don't think that you can do things differently, it'll be very hard to become innovative. Second is empathy. It's really why I say empathy, because when we are solving, when we are innovative ideas, it's about whether it's a product, a service, a law, a rule and regulation, a process, whatever it is. It's you are innovating, creating something new that will serve a certain category of certain people. So it cannot be just the way you look at it and you think, oh, I think this is a great idea. That could be an idea, but it will never be executed as an innovation that will be accepted by others unless you know, you empathize enough, which means asking the questions, putting yourself in the shoe of those people or those end users, consumers, citizens, depending on what your level of intervention for this innovation, and finding out, or employees if you're in HR, and from them, empathize with them to get the insight so that when you come up with a new idea, it will be serving them. Because if you come up with an idea that's not serving anybody, then that's not really an innovation. An innovation is a creative idea that has a positive outcome serving a defined target audience. So that's why empathy is very important, because this is where you're going to get your insights about how you can make this innovation really useful. Third is ease with ambiguity. Innovation means we are creating something new, something that hasn't been tried before. So we have no background. It could succeed and it could fail. And we don't know what it's taking us. Just like now, we are living in times of ambiguity. And individuals who have that ease with ambiguity, who take it day by day, who really look forward, and they don't really need to know what's going to happen in 1 year, what's going to happen in 5 years, are the happiest and the sanest, I would say. They're the most sane. It's because if you keep just thinking about what if it fails, then you're never going to try something new, which means you're not going to be innovative. So ease with ambiguity, and I always give an analogy of that. Picture yourself driving with fog. You know, not everyone is comfortable driving when it's foggy outside, because when it's foggy outside, all you can see is 50 meters or 100 meters ahead of you. You don't know if you're going to reach a dead end or a wall, but you're comfortable and say, okay, I'll take it 50 meters by 50 meters, but I'm okay driving with the fog. So that's the closest analogy that I bring to ease with ambiguity. It's really about driving without knowing where you're going, but you're going just step by step and taking the adventure and having that adventure mindset, because innovation is about trying new things. Learn by doing. So again, innovation is not about ideas, it's about executing. So you need to be ready to learn things by making prototypes, making minimum viable products, as we call them in the startup jargon. It's really about trying rather than coming and pitching an idea and then go and invest resources, money resources and human resources to come up with the final product or service or law, again, or whatever it is, and then finding out that it's not really working. So it's really about being able to try and test as we go until we come up with the final product or the final outcome that could be personalized, could be solving that problem. Like today, what are they doing? They're all testing vaccines, and they're not going to just find whoever's saying, we found vaccine, and we hear in the news every day, this lab, this country have found one. However, they cannot really commercialize it until they test it. So they cannot just have the molecular composition of the vaccine and say, okay, we think we have one. So it's before to innovate something new that is useful, because again, innovation is about finding something or executing something useful. We need to be able to learn by doing and be willing to fail early, as we call it. Learn from, it's not just about accepting failure, but it's about learning from failure. How do we document when we fail? What went wrong? What can I learn from it so next time when I try, I don't make the same mistakes? And some companies who are known by being very innovative, they actually celebrate failure, because for them, an employee who has never failed means an employee who has never tried anything new. So they encourage failure, and some of them incentivize. But again, it's not just any failure. You can't just go and use and abuse the company's resources and say, oops, I failed. It has to be planned. They have to see that you have tried your best, and that you were going toward, you were taking a path that was leading you somewhere. But by failing, actually, you could pinpoint or identify some weaknesses that everybody can learn from. So learning from failure is an important skill, an important mindset to have. Iteration, and I link that to learning by doing. And I see that happening a lot. Somebody gets an idea, creative idea, and they get so stuck to it because that's their baby. And when it doesn't work, they just get so worked up. They don't learn from failure. They're not willing to iterate. They're not willing to change and see, okay, what can I modify? What are the features that haven't worked? Have I empathized enough with my target audience to ask the questions, to get the insight, so I can see what I can change to really make the final outcome innovative enough that is useful for everyone? And positivity. And I should have put that as the first one. An innovative mindset, somebody who looks at possibility. Somebody who's negative about what cannot work, who looks at problems and why it cannot work, can never innovate. So innovative people tend to be very positive, tend to be curious, tend to imagine, visualize always what could work. They always look forward. They always have positive views of things. Curiosity, again, I already mentioned it. So you can only innovate if you're asking, how about, what if, be curious, observe outside, see what people are doing differently. How are the needs emerging? What is everybody saying about the products or the services or the experiences they're using? What are their pains? What are they complaining about that can give you a hint or a trigger to an opportunity that could be lying in the very complaint of somebody else? And active listening, again, we can only understand or empathize if we listen to what is said, and to also listen to what is not being said, to observe, engage with others, with different people, to get more ideas about how you can innovate and how you can do things differently. And last one is growth mindset. It's very, very important. Let me see, I have a question here. Okay. Let me just, thank you. Thank you very much, Suja, for your comment. Sorry, go back. So growth mindset is, I'm sure you've all heard about that. It's really about be willing to learn, willing to really challenge yourself. Okay, I could have, a couple of master's degrees and 20 years of experience, and I could just sit here and say, you know what, I'm the master of what I do, because I've been working for so many years, I've been managing so many teams, I've been a leader, and I'm the expert. That's a fixed mindset. Innovation means, okay, I need to always challenge myself and have that growth mindset, that I can grow, I can learn. Maybe what I know now is obsolete. If somebody initiates an idea, instead of saying, no, I have a PhD, I've been there, I know how, this is not how it's done. That's a fixed mindset. Growth mindset is somebody who accepts and willing to always learn and to always change the way they look at things. So growth mindset is very, very important if we want to embrace innovation. Now, you remember I said it's mindset, but also teaming. I think I already covered that, and we can just summarize it in the picture here. None of us is as smart as all of us. No matter how smart you are, you can never be as smart as the collective. So innovation means taking that into consideration, that even if you have the smartest ideas, listen to others, collaborate, look at diverse idea, coordinate with them, and so that you can come up with something new, with innovative ideas, with creative ideas. I chose a quote by Mark Twain: when you find yourself on the side of the majority, it's time to pause and reflect. If you are always having consensus, in every meeting, everybody thinks the same way. In every meeting, everybody said, yes, I agree, then there is something wrong. You need to change the team, or you need to change the job, or you need to change the company. So that's as seeming conducive environment. I think I covered it again. This presentation, this slide is just as visuals for you, but I think it was all covered. So it's really having those dynamic spaces, allowing for experimentation, whether you are an individual or if you're in a company, creating those what we call sometimes innovation labs. Could be just a corner, just an extra room that with the minimum investment of we could use just boxes and ropes or sketches or whiteboards, but at least some space where individuals can come and experiment with new ideas and present them. But when they present them, they need to have a listening ear. They need to have someone who can say, okay, let's see, well, maybe not now, but that's a good idea. Let's look at it later on. It's about having open forums where everybody can pitch new ideas, can listen to others, can really experiment and not just get into the operation mode every day, doing what you do. That's exactly what happened to the giants who are no longer here, because they just got so comfortable into being the leaders in what they do, and they thought it's going to continue like that. Have they been listening? Have they been empathizing with their customers and target audience? Have they been opening forums probably for their people to tell them, how can we continue? What is changing around us? Probably they would have disrupted their own business model and continue to maintain their customer base and not let other competitors take their market shares. I'm just bringing some examples of diverse companies that I personally had the privilege to work with on a create innovation culture. I'm talking about Saudi Telecom Company, for example, who had a brilliant, I think they're one of the most innovative telecom companies in the region. And the program we worked on with them was with Saudi graduates, like young joiners. They had just fresh minds. They just had 1 year of experience, and we run a program where they had to pitch new ideas like startups. So this is what I call corporate entrepreneurship. When you encourage your own staff to come up with ideas of products or experiences or technologies, and the company was willing. We had a judge, so we ran them through a program of design thinking and also lean business concept, really like it's almost like an incubator inside the company, so that they come up with ideas that could be pitched to STC, and some of them would be embraced as products that would be commercialized. I think these are some of the examples of how companies are embracing innovation as a culture. The Dubai Tourism is the same thing. They had their graduates or fresh joiners do the same thing, pitch ideas. Nestle ran a whole team. They had a year of innovation to see how they can continue on bringing new products that are matching with the change in behaviors of their customers. Even a regulator like Central Bank were willing, and nobody would think that an organization like Central Bank would think of innovation, but they were open as well to teach their staff and whole talent of starting to think about ways of innovating and ways of doing things differently, even at their level. So what we want to avoid as idea killers. Everybody wants to become innovative, but then you go pitch an idea and they're like, it's good, but, and in this three-letter word could be really a killer to innovative mind. The minute you say to somebody, yes, but, that's it. They're not going to listen to the next part, because they know that what comes after the but means it's something negative. So we might want to just start changing the way we speak sometimes. When somebody pitches something new, just say yes, and. If you just switch the but with and, you can really, encourage people to keep thinking differently. So I just have some examples here, like, yeah, yes, but it is just like what other people have done. We don't really have time. This is not for our industry. The management won't agree. So you have all these kind of mindset or kind of reactions and actions that really could kill the most innovative minds in your team or in your company. So you might want to really be careful of that. And I think what coronavirus crisis did is really taught us that we cannot say that's too big of a change, for example, or we don't have time, or we can't look at that. It's different for our industry. We are into this industry. We cannot have people work from home. We had to experiment. And that's the biggest learning that we have. So to sum it up, if we really want to lead innovation, if we are leaders, and when I say leaders, it does not mean that you are leading people. It could be leading your own role, leading your own, yourself, your own position. It's about taking advantage. Let's take advantage from this sense of urgency that this COVID-19 crisis has created, and continue on that. Because when people were on that urgency state or emergency state, they stopped resisting. They were open to new ideas. So how can we maintain that sense of urgency within our environment so that people are willing to innovate? We need to embrace courage. Because we need to take risks when we are innovating. We need to create safe spaces for people to fail fast, meaning to prototype before we invest more money and more resources and then find out that the idea is not really is not able to be executed. We need to connect with diverse stakeholders, meaning even if you are in a banking industry and you want to become innovative for your clients, maybe you need to look at the most innovative coffee shop, which is completely away from your, and I'm just bringing an extreme example, but it's true. I've seen that. We work with a client where we had to go and look at one of the branded coffee shops and see what kind of experience they create for their customers that they're happy with. What can we learn from that? Because at the end of the day, we are no longer creating products or services, we're creating experiences. So don't just compare yourself to your direct competitors. Compare yourself with everyone who is serving that target audience that you have defined. Learn to be resilient, which means absorb shocks. It's not just about anticipating. Nobody could anticipate this crisis. With all the technologies we have, with all the forecasting scenarios, nobody could anticipate. So it's no longer about looking at what's going to happen and stop being ready for it because of digital transformation or AI and all of that. Nobody had this in their vision 2020. Nobody knew this was going to happen. So because so many changes are going to happen that we cannot predict, we can only build resilience as individuals, resilience as environments of work, resilience as governments. So we need to be ready to absorb the shock and continue and move forward. So benchmark, I said that, and then focus on the purpose and value creation. Even if you are an employee, today you might be in a certain role. You say, okay, I'm a marketing graduate or I'm IT graduate, and this is what I do. I'm a back office, I'm back end office, this is what I do. I'm a customer service, I'm a salesperson. Stop, detach from that. Focus on how you add value, because your job may disappear. But if you focus on how you deliver value to your people, whether you are an individual, whether you're serving internal customers or you're serving external customers or you're serving citizens, then you will find ways on how to iterate and change and reinvent the way you do things. And you will find ways how, like the new skills you need to learn, or the new technologies you need to integrate, or whatever it is. But focusing on the purpose, detaching from the role or the product or the service, and focusing on how you add value. And to close with, I think the future, as Alvin Toffler, an American philosopher, said, the future arrives too soon and in the wrong order. And I think what we live in today matches with this quote. Also, he says, the illiterate of the 21st century won't be the one who cannot read or write, but will be the one who cannot learn and relearn. And I should highlight on unlearn, because that's the biggest inhibitors to innovation. When we are set on our ways, on certain ways, and we don't think that, or we don't know how to unlearn and put what we learned previously and be ready to learn new things, or relearn the way to do things, then it can be very hard for us to innovate. So innovation in the summary is a mindset, is about teaming plus creating the environment. And that was the end of my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. I hope I haven't missed any. So I'll be happy to answer any questions. Okay, I think there is a question here. Okay, do you feel that we should have like a department, innovation department, or innovation function inside the organization? Yes and no. I mean, as long as the intention from having the innovation department is really to see how to foster that culture rather than making it, again, exclusive to one department, because a culture means that it's values the way things are done here. Oh, I always describe culture as the way things are done in here, in this organization. And when we say that it's the way things are done, means it's the values. People need to embrace those values and behaviors of day to day. So having an innovation department, that probably role would be to help others to spread those values, yes, but not just to be the place where new ideas come from only, because new ideas can come from anyone. Thank you for sharing. Okay, there's another one. Okay, what if you have a leader? What if you have a leader who does not listen, and how can you convince them of new ideas? I believe that at the end of the day, and especially in this time, that's why I keep saying it'd be great if we all take advantage of this context or this crisis and how it created opportunities, because now everyone is willing, everyone is so anxious about maintaining their position in the market, about maintaining their jobs. So everybody is more willing to listen. So if you can just, present things in a way that showcase how they will add value or how they will prevent problems. If as long as you say, I have an idea, but it's not just I have an idea. You need to do your homework to present it as a business case, to present it as a case that links to what the leader cares for. That's why I go back to empathy. So when I say empathy, when you think about your leader, means you need to empathize with him or her. What does matter to her or him? I can't just come and say, oh, well, I have an idea, a brilliant idea that's going to disrupt, and all he's going to be thinking about, how is this going to disrupt the day-to-day? But if I come up with an idea and present it in a way that, well, we know what we're going through, and I know that what you care about today is to preserve work or to have more customer base or whatever that concern of that leader is, I promise you that they'll be open no matter how resistant they are. It's really about presenting it and remembering the difference between creativity and innovation. It has to be something that can be executed, something which outcome can be measured. I hope I answered your question. Let's see if they have more. Sure. Quantifying benefits of innovation is one of the coming questions for management. Absolutely. Can you suggest few ideas? Yes, that's so when we innovate, and that's why if we look at innovation as something that can be executed, just like what I just said, then definitely before implementing that innovative idea, you will have to know what is the current reality, where are we right now, and measure that. That's why assessment in the beginning is very important. We need to assess where we were, and then find out how are we going to be innovating, and where are we going to reach, how are we going to reach. So definitely we need to have some kind of target, some kind of we visualize, or some kind of vision of where do we want to reach. Even if it's about having, let's say we want our people to become more innovative, we want to set a contest, or we want to invest in having a creativity oasis. Okay, how do we measure that? How many new ideas have been produced by the frequency could be, you could choose the frequency, could be yearly, could be quarterly. So you need to set the measure, the KPIs. What will be your key performance indicator of that? What would be your innovation index, I would call it. So it's up to you, depending on a challenge that you are willing to solve, because we don't innovate just to innovate. We innovate because we want our customer experience to be better. We innovate because we want our employees to be more engaged. We innovate because we want to be to maintain our competitive edge, because we want to be up to the mark. So there's always a reason, a specific reason and specific challenge that we are focusing on, and that's where it starts. So when you link it to specific results, then it will be very easy for you to quantify and to make your own indicators or your own index of innovation. I hope I answered your question. If you can just let me know. All of you asked these questions. Great. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for your attention. It's been a pleasure. Let me see, did yeah, I went a little bit over time. I always do that. I get carried away when it's a topic that I'm really passionate about. Thank you so much for your attention and participation. And I look forward to probably the chance to interact in face-to-face with some of you that I already know, and some of you that I don't know. Hopefully our paths cross. And I wish you happy Eid Mubarak, and happy holidays, and stay safe and sane. And hopefully we'll go back. Well, we won't go back to how it was, but hopefully we'll go back to life at least. Take care, everyone. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.